we are using borrowers' debt as money. So people will say, oh, the government backs the money by gold, or, oh, okay, banks create it through fractional reserve lending. I got to tell you, none of this stuff is true. It used to all be true, but who creates our money supply are people who go into debt.
Hello, and welcome back to Beyond Common Business Secrets. We have an amazing guest with us here today, Kristen Ragusin. She has wrote this amazing book called The End of Scarcity. And Kristen is a financial expert. She has been in the world of finance for over 30 years and has done over 10 years of research on this book. And just through her amazing brilliance, you will see how reading her latest book, you will get more of an education in the world of finance than even people that studied to be economists at school for all these years. And I want to dig into that. So I've been a fan of Kristen since this book was in conception. We have a mutual friend, and we've never got to see each other face to face, but we've been fans. So Kristen, I'm so excited you're here. Thank you.
Oh, so wonderful to be here with you, Tracey. Thank you so much.
So I have to tell you, I've done a lot of studying of money and mindset, like from Bob Proctor, and things that go back to the 1900s, like The Science of Getting Rich. And they talk a lot about how sometimes if you study like somebody like an economist in college and you have all these multiple degrees, that it's a different part of your brain than actually like what you've done here with us in your amazing book, The End of Scarcity, like how you've made it so that we really have an education in money.
Absolutely. This is the education that we should have gotten in kindergarten. Like, this is the kind of stuff that our families would be talking about. In the late 1800s, they were. People on the street which were talking about money, not how to make money or how to invest it, but actually what was used as a dollar. So, when we think about it, we look at all of our lives and everything we're doing. And the thing that we often don't talk about together is the dollar. We know that we need to earn them. We have our passions or our ways to earn them, and then we know how to spend them. Sometimes we think about investing them, but we don't examine this all magical dollar that we're using. I mean, does the stork bring it? Where does it come from?
Like a baby? Where is it? That's a great question.
And it's the most important question we can ask. In a way, it sort of sounds silly, right? Because it seems like, oh, who cares? And this is the linchpin of freedom. It's the linchpin of whether we're actually able to enjoy the fruits of our labor and create the world that we want to. Sadly, I'll say we have a very unconscious relationship, which is normal, because again, like, when we come here and we hit the ground running, there's the sun and the moon and the stars and the rain, and there's money. So we just assume it's part of the framework, but it's something that we create together. We created money as a tool to help us be better at exchanging our gifts with one another. Yeah. And then a last little part here is the big question is whether we designed it in a way that helps society. And the truth of the matter is the form of money that we're using today is actually not constructed in a way that's useful. It's constructed in a way that's actually works against us. And it is the magical little thing that's operating unquestioned. And we're trying to fix everything in all different ways. If we just looked at the money, we would open a beautiful world of all things possible.
So I love that. Anything that's about all things possible. So tell me what would be like step one. Our audience is primarily business owners, so money is on the brain all the time. So what would be step one of looking at it this way?
Yeah, the very first thing is when we think of money, we think it exists separately out there, right? Like houses or cars or food or, that it's a thing. But the dollar, even though we can hold it in our hands or see digits on the screen, actually, guess what? It's not a thing. It does not exist out there as some stable quantity that we can go and capture. And this is kind of mind blowing. The book creates a revelation chapter after chapter. I really literally wrote it for my mom, who said more simple, until it was, 1 + 1 = 2. So again, we were supposed to learn this in kindergarten. And money itself is actually the equal sign in the equation. With the founding fathers, many people knew how to do it correctly. But today we are using borrower's debt as money. So people will say, oh, the government backs the money by gold, or, oh, okay, banks create it through fractional reserve lending. I got to tell you, none of this stuff is true. It used to all be true, but who creates our money supply are people who go into debt. And so if borrowers keep borrowing, you and I will have money to earn and spend. If borrowers stop borrowing, there will be no money in our world. And worse, if people pay off their debts, we'll have a depression of unforeseen proportion because all the money will be gone.
So that is interesting that you're bringing that up, because that was one of my questions that I had for you from reading the book, is like, since we discuss so much the concept of debt as money, like, I guess it's like, elaborate on what we should be focusing on then, because that is a rub for me personally, like, because it just is mind-blowingly different than anything that we've heard before.
The first thing that's going to happen is when we start to get this material and it sinks in the consciousness, it's happening faster. When I saw this, I got lucky. I saw the crisis of 2008 coming ahead of time. I got people out of the markets who could be out. And I was still heartbroken when I saw it collapse, because I knew I was missing something. And that took me 9 years, and that took me 9 months to find out that it's actually the way money is created as consumer debt. So we're on the hamster wheel. We have to constantly be taking out more and more and more debt just to have money to use with one another. This was never meant to be this way. The founding fathers, Abraham Lincoln, you name it, they would be besides themselves to know that we're on this system. Even banks, we could go all the way up the food chain. Even the Federal Reserve is stuck in this system. So we can easily change it together. But the first thing is, when we start to get this mind-blowing shift in perception, we're not going to be confused anymore. We even will have the opportunity to begin to come together as a society again, because what we're blaming different groups for, I'll tell you, the real problem is that the currency is misdesigned. And this has been the backstory of all human history for the last 5,000-6,000 recorded years we have. It's been the battle over creating money correctly. And so when we start to find out, whoa, borrowers not being able to borrow anymore is really what created 2008. If we go through a further crunch in the next couple of years, it's because borrowers will no longer be issuing our money as debt. And the big thing is, Tracey, when people repay their debt, if you and I repay a debt, we're in a temporary better position that we don't have the burden to pay that. But if we're all swimming in a pool with water, like we're swimming in society with money circulating, every time a debt is paid, the money that paid off that principal of the debt is destroyed. So I'll give you a quick example. It's gone.
It's gone. Okay.
It's like deleted on the keyboard. For an example, we take out a loan, a business loan for $100,000. And now, our time is organized 9 to 5, or we have to meet deadlines because we have to earn the money in time to make the debt payment. So even creating money as debt is the grand metronome in the sky that's controlling our behavior, because we all have to earn money to pay our bills. That's set on repaying that debt clock, whether people have debt or not. So we fish out, $2,000 for that monthly payment. People say, hey, wow, we're going to hire you. And we go to pay our monthly payment. which $1,000 of it goes to offset the 100,000 that we borrowed, and the other 1,000 is for interest. Now, we all get the fact that we only owe 99,000 back, right? Because we paid that payment. But the thing is, we did pay 2,000. We paid the interest. That 1,000 is supposed to continue to circulate. That was the interest. But the 1,000 that now canceled the debt, the bank deletes it. You see? So because it really only came into existence by our promise, signing on the promissory note to earn that money in the future. Then the bank creates it. It didn't exist before. So they're creating money out of our promise, not out of thin air, but our promise to be able to earn it, fish it out, compete in the system, and then repay it. But I think we all believe that when we repay a debt, that the money continues to exist and circulate.
Yeah. Like before reading the book, I always thought that it was like, okay, they would invest in the next you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, this is the money the bank makes off of that debt, or, because they're in business. They're in the business of money. So that it goes to the next person. And finding out that it gets erased was like, what? So my first, early on in reading, I was like, well, does that mean that we should all incur more debt? Right? So that there's more circulation. But that didn't feel right. So what do you suggest? What do you suggest as the financial expert that people come to you, right? And here's millions of dollars, make more for us. What do you do?
The first thing that we have to do is we have to really get to know what the system is. Our ancestors were praying that we would have this knowledge, and know and be really empowered to know that when a dollar or a money token is being created, can we look at it and say, all right, has it been correctly created? And if it hasn't, we want to make sure that there is a choice of money so we can get behind the correctly created token, the correctly created alternative currency or dollar. And then our children and all the other people around us will have a chance easily at creating a better and higher standard of living. If we go about trying to fix the problem without understanding how currency is meant to be designed, and guess what? It's really simple. I always tell people not to skip ahead in the book, but it comes in the later part of the book after we sort of break down some of the belief systems, how a dollar is just supposed to be a standard of measure to know if we feel our services are worth purchasing whatever we're buying. In essence, we're always bartering. When I go to buy a cup of coffee and they say it's $2 or $3 or $5 or $6, I can say, well, for my previously given services stored in the money unit, do I feel it's a fair exchange? Okay, it's a standard of measure for me to determine how I'm going to exchange my value. Money was meant to monetize or assist us as a neutral technology and exchange our goods and services with one another. The second thing it does is it acts as a receipt for contributing to others. And then the third thing is it's supposed to be a really quality storage of value to hold the wealth that we've contributed in the past and be ready to use when we want to exchange for someone else's wealth. The other thing that it needs to do is it must maintain stable value in the sense that it's a tool or a technology of measure, like an inch needs to remain an inch. And this is where we have big problems. The dollar we're using today cannot meet that standard. So the big thing, believe it or not, that people can do is when they get educated on this, they'll start to say, wow, I can see some of the confusion I've had, or even some of the shame or guilt or sense of competition or things that don't feel in alignment with my being. Well, I'm so excited about what I'm giving to the world, or if I really want to make a job change, when I start to find out that it's actually not me, there's not something really per se better about other people or their gifts, that the currency is designed incorrectly. And if we don't have lots and lots of people going into debt and overconsumption, I don't mean just lots of consumption. We have to be campaigned into so much consumption that everybody goes into debt to have the system be stable. Something magical begins to happen. there's a process in the book where people are freed of the heavy duty emotions around trying to earn money. And how do we sort of get to a life where it's complete and we're sort of set? And all of this angst or internal stuff that goes on gets cleared up through the process. So that's the number one thing, because it rewards us in spades when it goes ding, ding, ding.
Well,
And
that's funny because one of the main questions that I wrote down for like that, I was like, okay, I need to ask Kristen this because it's like such curiosity for me, is that so if debt is the current currency of money that we're really living in, how do we live in prosperity instead of the shame of scarcity? Like that was like, that's still my question.
it is a little tough at the beginning because, what happens is we start to realize that spending is very important. And it creates a conundrum because savings is also very important in our world. And so the money system, in a way, is like the blood system in our body. It has to flow. And it was meant to flow. But what was really meant to flow was our wealth. So, okay, we look at the money system at this point, we say, that's not really congruent with life. And boy, I'm grateful to know this, but there's also sort of a coming, there's making peace with this hard reality, which we're doing a lot of in our world today. So important that we do this because the path to freedom is right here, and a life that's worth living. The second thing that we start to say is, wait a minute, money and wealth are not the same thing. Now, I have to say this is also a big mind-blowing concept because money, even though it's all important in our lives, whether that's front and center or running in the back, and it's a very practical thing. We need to have a place to live. We need to have food to eat. Yes, we can make these things ourselves, but money is a critical infrastructure in our world that is not going to go away. Wealth, on the other hand, is inherent in our being. When we're born on this earth, we are born wealthy, every single one of us. And all the beautiful New Thought teachers knew this.
Yeah.
They knew, right? Bob Proctor, Neville Goddard, you name it.
Absolutely. We're all equally wealthy at birth.
And
Absolutely.
we live surrounded and immersed in an abundant universe. It's an abundant planet. Maybe the resources are stopped up in certain places. Maybe gold is quite abundant and made scarce. Maybe diamonds are quite abundant and made scarce. We don't know. But we do know that we live in this unbelievably accessible universe that we can change our lives at a moment's notice, anytime, no matter how grim the life looks at some point. So imagination is our most important resource. And our passions that inspire us. Now, this gets the whole engine flowing. And this is done encoded in our being on purpose. So when we tune in to our passions and we tune into what is always calling us, each one of us, again, was born with a unique gift of the divine or God or whatever we want to call it, pumping through us. And we can get distracted, we can get dismayed, but it whispers nonstop. So the more that we tune the ear and become courageous and step in that path of answering the call to bring forward the gift, we now are embodying and acting in the wealth. And absolutely, whatever is calling us, everybody wants from us. And without each person answering that call, we are all one less depleted. Every baby that's born, the community is more wealthy, more wealthy. Now, when we anchor into this, we get the concept already. Okay, I'm starting to get what wealth is. Now, money is at the service of wealth. Money has been contorted right now. It could be this beautiful green goddess who's saying, free me. I came here to serve you humans, to serve one another. And money is meant to be a wonderful mere technology like the computer, like the telephone, at service for the wealth of the conversation, for the ideas that are exchanged. And so money's saying, hey, humans, you are now being squeezed to say, number one, find out that I've been designed incorrectly. Number two, come together and redesign me. Get in your communities. Alternative currencies can easily be done. Blockchain and crypto has shown us this like never before, but still we don't have a legitimate money out there. For as much as I love the cryptocurrency and blockchain community, and I've spoken a bunch of times on monetary reform, we don't have a money yet. So this is what's coming next.
So what would that money, I guess that would be like the new currency that you see, what would that look like?
Okay.
What could we be focusing on here?
Yeah, I'll start with an analogy. If we were given a test of 100 equations and they said, take the test and see how many solve, not all of them solve, right? So we go and we work the test and it turns out that 70 equations solve. So already it says 3 plus 4 is, there's no equal sign, it says 6. And so we begin the test and we don't have to start and find equal signs first. Or somebody says, measure the table. We don't have to worry that we only have 30 inches, but we need to go out and find 60 inches to measure it. Mm-hmm. So this is the same thing that money was supposed to be, that if we were going to exchange our wealth with one another, that money token was supposed to come into existence. Now, still, what does this mean? It means that when any people before us had a Renaissance period, they designed the money properly. And guess what? It was backed and represented the quantity of the productive value that they produced. So, for example, if Toyota decided they were going to issue Toyota coin, Toyota dollars, it would depend how many cars or product they could produce. And if they could produce X amount, they could now issue or pay their employees an X amount of Toyota credit. But it couldn't be limitless. It has to be, bookended by their legitimate, verified, transparent supply, and it would have to be in check for the real demand of the Toyota credit. Now, this is what would actually create dollars that would begin to circulate. It's what happens today, but our dollars come from mortgage debt. This is also why, when you get paid or we look at the money in our accounts or we pay someone, we're paying other people with someone's mortgage. That's what's happening. And you think about a quarter. When we have money in our account, we have the head side of the quarter, but it really is the tail side. It really is someone's debt. So if we don't spend it in society, there's less money circulating for them to earn it in time so they don't go bankrupt. It's the other reason why our homes are now 10, 12 times annual salary, certainly in cities, where in the 70s, they were only 3 times salary because the mortgages are available. And when you create money as consumer debt, you have to indebt people. So the founding fathers left England because they were in debt. They came here truly for financial freedom because financial freedom is the basis of all other freedom. And they created colonial script off of productive land banks. They issued as much colonial script as there was real wealth being produced from these land banks. If they ever issued too much, they just sopped it up with a short-term tax. If they didn't issue enough, they issued more. And so their whole goal, like the bad example, but the banker in Monopoly, was to make sure there was enough money to pass go. And that's the simple thing that money was supposed to be done. And we have just gotten really off this train. We've been brainwashed, really honestly, indoctrinated by the culture to believe that we have to get dollars or money first before we can actually engage in our wealth. And so I think where we begin is by really building the fabric of our families and communities, getting to know our farmers. We absolutely can begin to self-issue in our communities. Regional farmers can. They begin already with CSAs or, where you give them money in the winter and then you go and every week, that coupon can actually begin to circulate as an alternative currency that's phenomenally different than one that's backed by the dollar. So just beginning the prototypes, beginning the circles of exchange First, it's allowing the ding, ding, ding to go off on the mind that, oh my goodness, I have an unconscious relationship with how currency is supposed to be created. And even though I think this sounds silly or extraneous, it is the most important thing dictating our lives. And then when we get that understanding, it is a little sad. It's a little heartbreaking when we see how much we've been made use of, but we start to step again out of the tunnel and we start to feel how powerful we are, because we as the people are responsible for all the wealth that exists in this world. And then when we start connecting in circles of exchange, we easily can even do this with paper, but the blockchain systems are coming to make sure that there's no counterfeiting and cheating. And this is going to come very quickly. I know of one incredible guy who's doing my exact solution in California right now. So in the next, this can happen quite rapidly. We're going to start seeing this at our doorstep.
Well, that's amazing, because I know that you have so much expertise in the digital currency. So what should we be looking for in that realm? Because that's more in alignment with what you're teaching us. And if you haven't already grabbed Kristen's book, you have to get The End of Scarcity. It is a game changer. And I'm the type of person that buys the book and listens to the audio. So is that available for both?
Yeah, it's really exciting. So the audiobook just went live last night. And
I'm so getting it today.
it really, I was even up late, like listening
Yay!
It is a book that teaches on so many different levels, and it entertains. It came to me really as an adventure story, the third revision. I was jet lagged coming back from India. And just as I started to fall asleep, chapter 1 showed up like snapshot pictures in my mind's eye. And I had to grab a notepad just to capture the outline. And then I began to really take the dictation down. And the book really almost wrote itself for 4 months after 10 years of research.
That's amazing. So knowing all of this knowledge, and obviously you were tapped into the divine, so, you had help writing it. So what is your professional recommendation when it comes to what we should be, doing? Is it really that we need to look at investing in some of these digital currencies, getting together as a community and deciding what talents and skills we want to put on the table? I often have always said that, I don't know, it was like innately knowing this, but it always seemed to me that, money was here to serve us. It was like a tool, like technology, I'm like, it's a tool for me, for us. It's a tool, not that we're a tool to it. And for me, it's always been trying to explain that difference. And people look at me like I'm insane sometimes, but it's always about, we're here to serve and give of ourselves 100% wholeheartedly. Like I hold nothing back. If I've learned it, I will teach it to you. And it's in service of others, right? Where I think the breakdown of society personally has been where people serve money as that, like they're the servant to it. And that's the thing I'd like to see changed if I'm really dreaming of my perfect world.
Absolutely. And it's shocking how easy it is. There's a mastermind called A.C. Regal who wrote to really stop World War II, saying, when you come to realize the money power is in you. And this is beyond new thought. This is understanding that money itself has its value from our gifts and services, from all the things that we buy money with, food, housing, education, clothing, you name it. But and what we give it, the source is in us. And when humanity at a small critical point, when we get this, the watershed moment will change. And, it's to no fault of us as humans that we are living for the money. I mean, that's absolutely going on, because when the survivor gets filled with fuel, which we've really experienced in the past few years, fueled with fear, right? Of course, we start to say, whoa, do I have enough? Oh no, what can I give? When we see inflation going, all these different kinds of things, volatility in markets, and we can even get into some of the scary truth of history, which is really no one for sure owns anything. If the powers that be wanted to take our homes or take our cars or take our money out of the banks, They could, right? So there's not even anything someone could do truly in the traditional world to stay safe. Could you invest in something, take gold, take Bitcoin? No, men with guns could easily take it away. And even if we had guns, okay, then, it still doesn't matter, right? Everything is an illusion. The scarcity is an illusion and the ownership is an illusion, but it's still determined by how fueled we are. And when we come empowered from the truth, which is that we are inherently wealthy and no one can take it away from us. But the way it manifests in society is when the alternative currencies or all the currencies are designed correctly. And when they're designed correctly, there can be no contortion, which we certainly are experiencing and have been experiencing pretty solidly for the last 100 years. College educations were never supposed to be the price they were. Houses were never supposed to be so out of reach. And we're really moving toward this rentier economy where we don't own anything, but we just pay for things on a monthly basis. It was not intended to be this way. So the most helpful way where we can invest our energy, yes, is number one, finding your passion. And really, if that sounds luxurious, I'll tell you, it is the most practical thing we can do. If people are working or engaging in service that they don't feel is aligned with who they are, make a date with yourself, find a time, create some space to feel what you love to do and tune into that more and more and more. That is going to change abundance more than anything. It's also going to put you in tune with joy, which is going to make this revelation easier and empower humanity to create these circles of exchange. The second thing to do is to really reinforce the fabric of our communities. So we need to have, like the flower of life, our families, extended families, our friends, our communities, our regions, our states, our country, our countries, our planet. And we need to really think from this basis. And so the more that we can reinforce the local level, it strengthens the regional level, the national level, the global level. And again, the great thinkers before us knew this. And so that's where I would say, put the energy. I would also say, don't ignore the practical world. Money is money, even if it's misdesigned, it's still very important. We need to be doing the best we can to living within our means, and still putting money away in different ways. Working with a financial advisor is a great way to get real support. Sometimes doing a little bit of everything can often be a great solution because not everything fails at once. And by taking care of the practicality, we also create more stability for ourselves so that we can go to the inspired place and allow that sort of dance of instability and stability to bring us to the whole next level.
I love that. I typically ask about, what's the biggest business secret? And you hit it right. You just hit all of them right there with doing all of these things now will lead us to what is actually possible, right? Like, so that we can really live in this new world of what is actually possible. Kristen, thank you so much for your time today. How can people that want to work with you, that want to learn more, how can they get a hold of you?
Oh, thanks so much, Tracey. So much fun. The best way I would say is to come to my website, which is Kristen Ragusin, Ragusin.com, which is with a K and an E, Kristen. And then Ragusin is Ragusin.com. There's a host of resources coming there, a community, and certainly can stay in touch. You can get the book there, and you can pretty much get the book everywhere. So I am just so grateful for each and every person, because we can create the most beautiful future together as soon as we just get unwound from some of these misconceptions that are secretly running our life. The future is truly ours, Tracey.
Oh, Kristen, amen, sister. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I know this is going to be so helpful to our audience, and go check out Kristen's website. I will put the link in our show notes, and I hope you are all having the most beyond common day and feeling more wealthy than ever after this conversation. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.